18 months in a minimum security facility. He was allowed to leave for 12 hours a day to work at a foundation he founded, and apparently continued doing exactly what he was doing before. And I don't want to be too graphic and lurid because there might be kids watching, but he was doing precisely the kinds of things that we're talking about in terms of the protection of children. He was violating children, violating young women, and then he would go and spend the night in jail. And in the meantime, he was able to bargain immunity for all of these other people who were working for him.
The gentleman yields.
Yes, by all means.
In other words, while he was doing all the sexual predation, the government was providing room and board and meals and making it cheap of him to do so.
Well, that's not a bad way of looking at it, especially because apparently it was a very comfy jail cell they set up for him. Now, I'm sure he would have preferred to be back in one of his mansions, which were basically sexual dungeons for the young women and girls that got swept up in his sex conspiracy, which was something that the vast majority of Americans deplore and abhor and want to get to the bottom of and want to know the truth about. But anyway, he spent those nights, and then they wiped the slate clean for him to continue to go on and do it again and again and again. This is a guy who should have immediately been prosecuted and then convicted and sent to prison for the rest of his life for what he had done. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell was prosecuted and convicted as a felony sex offender and sentenced to 20 years in jail. She just got transferred out of her prison to a club fed in. Sex offenders are not normally allowed. Felony sex offenders are not normally allowed there, but after she spoke to the president's former criminal defense attorney, who's now working in the Department of Justice, and he liked what he heard, she was immediately transferred over to this very comfy arrangement in Texas. She skipped over months and months of the normal process where you have to prove there's some compelling reason to be transferred from one facility to another under the rules of the Bureau of Prisons. She bypassed all of that and she got sent over to this other prison because, well, Mr. Blanche liked what he heard when he went over to talk to her. Come on. We're the Congress of the United States. The framers of the Constitution thought that we would stand up for integrity and we would stand up for our interests and not be servile, partisan sycophants to the President of the United States. So let us all show some backbone today. Let's say we don't move forward on this legislation until the Epstein-Acosta file is released. Let's vote for that, everybody. And if you're serious about getting the truth of it, you will support my amendment. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back. I would just point out that the director of the FBI will be sitting at that table 1 week from today, and all the questions and concerns Mr. Moskowitz raised, he can ask the director, he can ask him right to his face, and we'll get the answers. And then with regards to Mr. Acosta, he will be being deposed on the 19th of this month. So in 9 days, he'll set for a deposition where he will be under oath, and Mr. Garcia, who has the job that Mr. Raskin used to have, can ask him all the questions and make all the points that the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee just raised.
But Mr. Chairman, you would agree that the questioning
from California is recognized.
Wouldn't the question be more meaningful if we actually had the file to look at?
Mr. Chairman, I insist on my point of order.
Gentleman insists on his point of order. Does the sponsor of the amendment? I'll recognize the gentleman.
Thank you. I'm reminded of Churchill's definition of a fanatic, a man who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. But the subject has nothing to do with immigration law, which is the subject of this bill, and therefore the gentleman's amendment would introduce material beyond the scope and purpose of the bill before us. It violates House Rule 16, Clause 7. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman from Maryland wish to respond?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I suppose I am a fanatic for child safety. I am a fanatic against child sex trafficking. Yes, I am. And I will be a fanatic to stand up for the public interest and the vast majority of Americans who want the truth to come out and don't want to sweep it under the rug.
Then the gentleman will support this
It's my
bill.
time. I'm not yielding to you right now. I've heard enough from you. Now, Mr. Epstein's victims included aspiring models from abroad, including South America. He had a whole team working in France.
The gentleman,
used
the gentleman should focus on the point of order.
This is focusing on the point of order, Mr. Chairman, because
All
I'm
right,
talking
just-
about
just-
the international dimension.
Just reminding the gentleman who spoke more than anyone today here at this hearing and has said that he's not going to support the bill, as the gentleman from California just pointed out. So if you can stay focused
I
on the point
wanna-
of order, that'll be good.
I would love to support the bill if you support the release of the Epstein file and the Costa file. I mean, let's.
We're forgetting all the information. We're forgetting all that information out, and that's why I've told you about.
Well, let's get it out today.
Mr. Acosta's deposition and Mr.
We've heard a lot of promises
Coming
about getting it out.
committee.
We haven't seen much action. A lot of promises, but no action. Today, we could take some action. The gentleman suggests that my amendment is not in order because it's not germane to the question of international child trafficking and illegal immigration. Well, Mr. Epstein's victims, including aspiring models and girls being taken advantage of from South American countries and from Europe and France. He used a ring of associates to rotate the women and girls in and out of sexual servitude in different countries, in different places, using fraudulent modeling visas to transport them across state lines and across international borders. He tracked their availability and their proximity using this database. This is exactly what we're talking about. It's hard to see how it could be more material, more germane, and more relevant.
This isn't about one man, one party, or one scandal. It's about whether transparency is treated as a right or as a disruption. When releasing records about child trafficking is ruled irrelevant, the message is clear. Some truths are considered more dangerous than wrongdoing itself. And once a system learns it can survive without answers, it rarely rushes to provide them.
Freedom of speech, but in any event, this is completely material and relevant. It's about the Acosta deal is about providing immunity from federal prosecution to Epstein and all of his unnamed co-conspirators. They were protected by that sweetheart deal. And this is about child sex trafficking, and the legislation is all about the protection of children. I don't see how it could be more aligned with the legislation here. Look, if you oppose it, if you don't want the file coming out, at least have the backbone and the courage to stand up and say you don't want it coming out. But don't say this isn't relevant to the protection of children. Give me a break.
Imagine a rule that says the most powerful people in the country can argue forever about procedure, as long as they never have to argue about truth. That's the scene in this House Judiciary hearing. Not a debate about whether Jeffrey Epstein trafficked children. Not a debate about whether the government failed to stop him. Instead, a debate about whether Congress should even be allowed to talk about releasing the files. Before this turns into names or parties, understand why this moment matters. When transparency itself is ruled out of order, that's not a technicality. That's a warning sign. Representative Jim Jordan dismisses the amendment as irrelevant, calling it Trump derangement syndrome. That line lands hard, not because it's loud, but because of what it avoids. The amendment on the table is simple. Pause the bill until all Epstein-related documents are released to the public. No accusations, no verdicts, just disclosure. But instead of arguing against disclosure on the merits, the response is procedural. First, it's not germane. Then, it's partisan. Finally, it's mocked. That sequence is familiar to a lot of Americans. When an issue gets uncomfortable, institutions don't always deny the facts. They change the subject.
Wait, hang on a second.
Okay, yeah.
Clerk will report, and then we'll go.
Amendment to the amendment and the nature.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you kindly. My amendment's simple, Mr. Chairman. It would not let this bill take effect until all the Epstein files are released. My Republican colleagues have put forward multiple bills this markup that reflect what they say is a renewed focus on protecting kids against trafficking and exploitation. Well, this is the test. If our colleagues are serious, and I believe they are, then they should be happy and eager to join me in supporting this amendment. The text before you is the same text as Mr. Massey and Mr. Khanna's discharge petition that every Democrat and 4 of our Republican colleagues have joined in. In just the last 48 hours, we've seen how important it is that the public actually get to see the Epstein files for ourselves. The Oversight Committee has received Mr. Epstein's entire 50th birthday book, courtesy of Mr. Epstein's estate. This includes the now infamous and slightly juvenile birthday note and drawing that President Trump denied existed at all. In fact, he sued the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion for reporting that Trump had written this suggestive and lascivious note with the drawing of well, perhaps an underage girl's body. Hard to say exactly what it is. But in that note, he draws an outline of a woman's naked body, a young woman's naked body, wishes Jeffrey Epstein happy birthday, and then ends it with, "May every day be another beautiful secret." Well, this is now public, and it clearly includes the president's signature. He's disputing that it's his signature, but it looks exactly like about 100 other signatures that we have from the president, including on federal legislation. So let's not allow this to be another beautiful secret before we proceed. Let's open up the Epstein files. The book also includes some disturbing, never before seen images that appear to depict Epstein grooming young girls. It includes a never before seen document where Epstein and a longtime Mar-a-Lago member are joking about selling a woman, a quote, fully depreciated woman, to Donald Trump for $22,500. You can see it yourself if you have any doubt about it. Look, it's time for all of us to decide, Democrats and Republicans alike. The country is unified around this. Are we going to be on the side of transparency and accountability, or are we going to be on the side of the human traffickers and those who collaborate with them and collude with them and protect them? There is a stench of corruption, predation, and exploitation that now hangs over this whole matter. And we are seeing one of the greatest cover-ups of our century unfolding in real time. Which side are we on? And that cover-up, of course, starts with Alex Acosta, Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, who gave Epstein a ridiculous plea bargain, ending the federal case against him for no apparent reason other than his wealth, his connections, his political power. There was a multi-count federal indictment ready to go, and Alex Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida, gave it up and instead traded it for one count of solicitation. It didn't even mention child sex trafficking. One count of solicitation under Florida state law. He got the sweetest of sweetheart contracts. He was free in the daytime for several months, and then he went and spent the night in jail. And allegedly, he continued his criminal activities, grooming and procuring girls and having sex with underage girls and young women. So, this is about corruption. This is about the wealthy and powerful being able to manipulate the American justice system to get away with their crimes against kids. Let's release the file to the public. Vote yes on this, everybody. Let's make some history today. Let's make some history that we are going to see that the Epstein files actually come to light. That's what America wants. The most liberal people, the most conservative people, people across the spectrum want to see the files. We don't want dribs and drabs of the files they want us to see. We want the files they don't want us to see. We want the entire case file that they've got. Let's clear the air. Let's get the truth and the facts out there. Let's put an end to this corruption and cover-up. Let's do it on a bipartisan basis. I hope